Well, hello Z-Pack. How are you? Welcome to our studio. We're back online, snitches. Cox still hasn't fixed our internet, so let us know if it's super glitchy because we're going to do it anyways, because today I'm super excited. I didn't want to go from a phone because I got my friend and pediatrician and doctor and CEO and president of the Medical Group Management Association, which represents the Lollipop Guild and also medical practices across the country. They're on peer with the AMA and the American Hospital Association, etc. They don't wear suits, they wear dockers. Dr. Halee Fischer-Wright.
Nice to be here.
What up, girl?
Oh, not much, man.
Not much, except that you wrote a book.
I did.
Should we show them this book? Look at this. It's called Okay, wait, let's just use my camera. Ready? There it is. Back to Balance, the art, science, and business of medicine. Now, you and I are buddies. We go way back at least a month.
2 months.
Maybe 2 months.
2 months.
And when I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, you're a sister from another mister, because you're a physician who practiced for a long time, like 20 years.
Almost 20 years. Yeah.
Wow. I just round up. Like, it was really 9.5 years, but I'm like, I spent a decade at Stanford. And people go, oh, yeah. So you're basically 20 years as a pediatrician, you headed up a large medical group.
An 800 physician medical group for 14 years.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, me too.
That must have been so painful. And so leading that, you got a lot of experience, and then you did consulting.
I did.
And co-wrote one of my favorite books of all time, which is Tribal Leadership, which for those of you who've heard me talk about this, and if you go to our Amazon.com recommended books, it's on there along with Back to Balance. It is truly a transcendent piece of how do we understand cultures at work and in general, and how do we lead people to be more connected and transcendent. And it changed my way of thinking. When I moved to Vegas, Tony Hsieh, our investor, was like, yeah, you should read this book. And I was like, oh, come on, dude. And then I read it and I was like, this is dope. And then I found out you were the head of MGMA. I was speaking for MGMA. And then you had written this book, which I devoured. And it's amazing. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invitation to be here.
And look, you have a very difficult job of representing thousands of medical practices around the country.
Yes.
So the business side of medicine meets the art, which is this, meets the science, which is how we do what we do. How you wrote a book because you felt like these weren't in balance.
Right. So book Back to Balance, and the subtitle is The Art, Science, and Business of Medicine. When I talk about it, I talk about the science is how we treat, the business is how we pay, and the art is how we care. And even though there's 7,000 years of scholarship on the art of medicine, for the purpose of this conversation, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And what I write about is that the reason why no one's satisfied, and no one is, the patients, the people that work in the medical practices, and the physicians aren't happy, is because we are horrifically out of balance at this point in time.
So I think most of my audience feels that, and you can already the comments are coming in, right? You know, suggested reading for all hospital administration, Elizabeth Hughes, because and someone noticed that we have bigger bottles of water. So we used to give guests these tiny little bottles. Talk about being out of balance. This idea is now that medical practice has lost its way in that, like you said, for thousands of years, it's about this. Right? And what was the quote you used from Osler? Medicine is?
It's an art informed by science.
An art informed by science.
Right.
It is not purely a science, it is not purely a business.
Correct.
But in this book, you actually kind of very brilliantly go through, and by the way, I'm going to total honest feedback. The first chapter's hard because it sets the stage for the book. But it's hard to feel like, okay, I'm going to really get into this book. Chapter 2, immediately, you nailed me with Michael Crichton.
Well, and you know, how can you resist a chapter title that is, what do dinosaurs, the art of medicine, and George Clooney have in common? So
First
I mean,
of all,
that's the best chapter title ever.
They're all dreamy.
Yeah.
Because George Clooney, hello.
That's how I feel.
Right? I'm perfectly straight with a little bit of crooked. George Clooney would make me fully crooked. But I'm just saying, like, the idea that second chapter with storytelling drives you into, okay, what is wrong with our balance? So we went from a system where science wasn't really a thing.
Right.
Like science only became a thing, and you pointed out the discovery of penicillin as a sort of turning point. Why did you choose that?
Well, so if you take a look at, there's a curve of history of innovation, it's really 1930. If you take a look at inventions within medicine, it's a pretty slow increase from 7,000 BC to 1930, and then starting in 1930, the curve goes like that.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we can tie to that. And it wasn't the invention of penicillin. Actually, Fleming discovered penicillin 20 years before it actually got disseminated. Another side story. But that's the real point that we start to see innovation in medicine really grow. It's not exponentially, geometrically. And it continues on that same run.
Yeah, yeah. And, so you're saying that flappers were responsible for everything.
I thought it was prohibition, but I'll go with flappers too.
Yeah. Well, I like that. So after the flappers discovered penicillin, if I'm understanding you correctly, then things got exponential. Now the science becomes a big deal.
Yeah, and that's why, when we mentioned the Osler quote, what I say now is medicine is a business informed by science that needs more art.
Got it. Now, is that because you're biased because you run the side of medicine that actually helps practices administer the business?
Actually, I think the irony is I do represent the business of medicine. And it is a bit ironic. I mean, my organization touches almost half of the healthcare in the United States.
Wow.
And what we know is the art of medicine is the best business that can be. It's through the art of medicine that we can get to the goals that we have as a country, but we can also address some of the major problems going on, which is people feeling dissatisfied with the care they're getting, as well as physicians feeling burnt out.
Yeah. So the idea that doing good in the world, meaning being a great artist, a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a PA or a pharmacist who listens to people, makes their patients feel heard and actually cares, can actually do well financially.
Absolutely. And what we talk about in the book over and over again is not only is it an issue of trust and communication, which is crucial for creating the relationship, but also it's good business because you actually deliver better care and get better outcomes and have higher satisfaction.
Hey, wait. You said things that trigger me. Okay, satisfaction, outcomes, etc.
I know, it's like a business person.
Right, and we titled this thing The Measurement Industrial Complex and the Destruction of Medicine for a reason. Reading this book, especially the chapters on quality metrics, on EHR, on how the business world kind of swooped in and speaks a different language than clinicians. And now what's happened is we've gone from this art to all science and business, with the art being subjugated. Our medical students now are taught that the truth is in the EHR. So whatever the EHR says, that's true. It's not a representation of the actual patient. It is the actual patient. And that when you actually talk to the patient, and you give a great example of your dad being mistakenly diagnosed with pancreatic cancer because someone was looking at the chart instead of talking to him or going through the proper...
Or even looking at the scan.
Looking at the scan itself. It hits home because we see it every day. So the question though is, if we're that out of balance, and a lot of this is government, well-meaning, they go in and say, you know what, EHRs are a thing, you should use them. But what did they do wrong there? I mean, how did that get out of control?
Well, so first of all, let me share with you a little bit of the story about my dad. So when I first got my job as CEO of MGMA, my dad, who has multiple sclerosis, was having belly pain. He went to the ER. He was on a bunch of multiple sclerosis medications. They thought maybe he was having a reaction to the medication. They did a CT scan. And so I get this phone call from my mom, tearful, heartbroken, that says, your father has pancreatic cancer. So I was in Colorado Springs at the time, drove up to home.
You're based in Denver?
I'm based in Denver, So drove an hour and a half at 4 a.m. to go see my dad. I walk into my dad's hospital room. He breaks into sobbing tears and says, promise me you'll take care of your mom and your brother. I mean, so when we talk about this, I think the thing, and particularly I point to it a lot in the book Back to Balance, is we're talking about people. We're not talking about policy. We're not talking about these ethereal financial things, which is what metrics do.
Yes.
We're talking about real people people that are family, people that are friends, people that are parents. Now, the way that story unwinds is that actually he didn't have pancreatic cancer. He happened to have a cyst in his pancreas, which he had had the last 10 years. And it was present in multiple CT scans, but it was read as possible pancreatic cancer. The intern communicated that. So that goes back to your point in regards to what are we going to do about that? In 2005, right before I went to business school, I attended this conference in San Francisco that talked about the benefit of electronic health records. And the goal was to give patients a portable health record. That was the goal.
Oh my gosh.
And we were going to spend $500 million, and it was all going to be happy, and it'll be done and fully integrated by 2007.
That was what George Bush had mentioned in his State of the Union. Yeah.
Yes, and so I happened to be at the meeting that just bestowed that opportunity. It was we're going to land a man on the moon, and we're going to put an EHR in every physician's office.
Yep.
Well, it's now 2017. We're still not fully integrated, and what has happened, and you point something out really important, and that is all these things started out with good intent.
Yeah.
That with good intent, which was we're going to give the patient a portable record, it'll decrease cost, it'll improve safety, it'll improve satisfaction. Really what's happened as time has gone on over the last 12 years is it's become a business tool. Mm-hmm. And is really a billing tool, for lack of a better word.
I call it a glorified cash register with a little patient stuff tacked on. Yeah.
And I would argue, I don't know how much patient stuff is tacked
Right.
on. But that's where we have to kind of pull back and ask ourselves the questions of why are we doing this?
Right.
If the EHR has become a tool of billing, is it any more serving the provider or is it serving the patient? And I would argue we're not asking the right questions. We're asking how do we get more cash out of that EHR, not how do we serve our patients and our providers better.
That's the fundamental thing you point out in this book, is that we are asking all the wrong questions.
Yes.
So with metrics, we're asking, how can we make sure we quantify the stuff that we've done so that we can get paid? Whereas the question is, what is good for our patients?
Yes.
What do our patients want? What is the job our patients want us to accomplish when we do something? And it's interesting, we'll talk about solutions in a little bit. I think focusing a little bit more on the problems resonates with a lot of people who are there in the front lines. And, like, for example, Sarah Elliott says we need one EHR. Well, that gets to the interoperability component. What's the point of the portability of stuff if you can't get the information?
Absolutely. And I think you point out something really necessary in that, and that is, let's talk about quality metrics, because I know that many of the people watching this right now are about ready to pull their
I'm
hair
getting
out.
hives. Yeah.
Well, I have a rash, but I'm not going to tell you where it is.
Oh, good. That'd be a first, because Tom over there is constantly telling me about his rash.
Saw my butt.
So, one of the things that I write about in the book is that my organization, MGMA, put out a study that basically said in the United States we spend almost $39,000 per physician documenting quality, not improving quality, not bringing it back to the patient. We just spend it so that we can prove that we've clicked the box.
And someone, just here it is, Brenda Rhodes. I wasn't born to click boxes, just saying.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, no, but in this system, that is exactly what you're born to do.
Yeah.
And so 49,000 average per doc on just documenting.
39,000, yeah. $18 billion a year.
So someone's getting rich.
Someone is getting rich.
And here's the thing, that's where we get into the measurement industrial complex.
Yes.
So lots of businesses and companies have evolved to fill these unmet needs of the good intentions of the laws that have not accomplished any of the actual outcomes that we were searching for.
Absolutely. And let me add another layer in. So most of the physicians listening to this are basically concerned about MIPS, which is the new kind of reporting system for Medicare. So you're being highlighted on your cost efficiency and your quality. So here's the thing. I just got an email from a physician said, look, I've made it 99th percentile for MIPS. So I'm like, way to go. Here's the question. Do your patients feel that? Did you just check the boxes?
Right.
And by the way, that MIPS reporting period was 18 months ago.
Right.
So it has no relationship
to what you're doing now.
To what you're doing today.
The whole thing, when I read this, it's like being in Dante's Inferno. It's an insane, and look, I've had people sitting here, the Surgeon General, Robbie Pearl, CEO of Kaiser, and they all have a different angle on how back-asswards our system is.
Absolutely.
And your angle, I think, is fascinating because it comes entirely from the sort of physician-patient perspective, this interaction that's been interfered with directly by well-meaning bureaucrats who now are in a system where the bureaucracy keeps them employed. And these big middlemen, billing houses, ICD-10, CPT, all these things that exist for this measurement industrial complex, but don't actually affect or help patients.
Absolutely. And what I write about in the book Back to Balance is that our healthcare system is $3.4 trillion.
It's gone up.
It's gone up.
Aye.
But fundamentally, it still comes down to a provider in a room with a patient.
Right.
No matter how sophisticated, how many zeros you add to it, it's a provider in a room with a patient. And so it is about that relationship because everything in healthcare springs out of what occurs in that room.
And that's the thing, and you point out too, there's data about the power of touch in terms of affecting the immune system.
Don't touch me.
Tom, tell the judge that I didn't violate the restraining order. That was an involuntary tick that I had.
Yeah, don't go Weinstein on me.
I'm not about to perjure myself for you.
You know what? This is a side note. Weinstein, you are a woman in medicine at the head, and we'll get back to the measurement industrial complex. You're a woman in medicine at the head of a major medical organization akin to the American Medical Association.
Correct.
That is a rarity.
Yes.
And I want to hear what that's like because everything I hear from my spies of the other sex is that it's very difficult not being treated with a bias.
It's a great question. And what I would say is there are now more women in healthcare leadership, but 65 to 70% of all care delivered in healthcare is delivered by women, and yet only 10% of the upper echelons of leadership are women. So we have a disparity there.
Yeah.
So we know there's a bias there.
Right.
I think there's a generational bias. And you and I talked about earlier that I attend meetings all the time where I'm not young, but I'm still 20 years younger than a lot of the people I'm attending with. And certainly I stand out by virtue of being a woman. There is a bias. And I think any woman who's in a leadership position, certainly in a national prominence position like I am, there is a bias. You learn to navigate it. You learn to ignore it, but it's something that's present every single day. And actually, I talked to my husband about this a lot, and he said, I had no idea how prevalent it was until you got this position.
And he's a physician.
He is.
So like in healthcare, it's highly prevalent if you listen to a lot of people who are experiencing it. The Physician Moms Group is a great example. They will talk about this kind of bias because it's a real thing.
Yes.
Men either ignore it or they're implicit in it or they don't notice it.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that it took your current position, which is really an upper echelon leadership position in the country, for him to notice it. What was it that stood out to him about it?
I think it was the communication, or when he would attend meetings with me, and just there's a differential in the behavior. And I don't think this is dissimilar to a lot. I mean, I kind of jokingly said, don't touch me, don't go Weinstein on me.
Right.
But I also think...
No, but really, I am disturbing.
Disturbing or disturbed?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
But I do think that we're experiencing a cultural shift where all of a sudden there's an awareness of it. And I think it is so institutionalized that it's unconscious. And we talked, you and I talked about earlier that you can only identify your bias if you're conscious of it.
Right, you're aware, yeah.
And so from that standpoint, I think we're seeing that seismic shift occur. We're seeing it in media right now, but it will roll over into other institutions such as, I hope, Congress, healthcare, finance, technology. There are multiple institutions that are ripe for this opportunity, but absolutely, I do experience it every single day. Yeah,
all I can say is, if this is a seismic shift, I think that's fantastic. Yes. I'm just hoping it takes down Dr. Oz. I'm not rooting for anyone to get, jacked, but I'm just saying, this is my elephant talking, all right? You definitely don't have to endorse that statement.
I'm practicing soft eyes.
Soft eyes? Explain soft eyes to me. What's that?
Soft eyes is when you kind of no judgment. Just kind of go soft.
Wow, Tom, how come you never use soft eyes on me?
Yeah, those aren't soft.
Yeah, no, Tom has stink eyes. Not just one stink eye, he has 2 stink eyes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, fantastic. Thanks for giving us that
Yeah.
insight. I think bring it back then to the measurement industrial complex
Yeah.
from Weinstein,
Yeah.
which I think it just follows.
It was logical.
It was. You're a Star Trek fan too, aren't you?
I am.
I noticed some references in the book.
Yes.
Me too. Kirk or Picard?
Oh, Picard.
I'm torn.
Oh.
I love them both. I would vote for Data if I could.
Ooh. Yeah.
It's a little bit of Asperger's in me that I associate with Data.
It's not the golden eyes.
It's not the golden eyes, although I like that too.
Yeah.
The stink eyes, the soft eyes, the golden eyes.
There you go.
When we're talking about measurement industrial complex, so $40,000 per doc,
Yeah.
and not measuring stuff that actually affects real outcomes.
Absolutely.
So here's a question. There's other things that we do that don't affect real outcomes, like billing, filling out different billing forms. You tell an insane story about racking up like $84,000 in medical bills as a doctor, 2-doctor family, struggling with how do I pay this? How do I fight this? How do I interpret this? Your mom's an accountant. She goes through the thing and she can't figure it out.
Yeah. So, short story, and I like to share this because it's really important to know that this touches everybody, even a 2-doctor household. So my husband was kind of he was diagnosed with kidney cancer, had a surgery, he's doing great.
Yep.
But in that process of having surgery, doing the scans, getting treatment, all of that, all these bills started coming in. But he had health insurance. So, he's a doctor. He's got health insurance. I'm a doctor. I have health insurance. It should be fine.
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? And this is prior to the ACA, where there wasn't limits on kind of crummy health insurance plans. Fast forward to about 60 days after Mike's surgery, he's recovering from cancer. He's, still not feeling good, still really not himself. And then all of a sudden, all these bills start coming in saying you owe these tremendous five-figure, 6-figure sums. And I thought in my head, oh, well, we've got health insurance. Time will make this go away. Well, we got to the place where the bills weren't going away. And this was 2008. And I ended up going to my mom, as you mentioned, who's a CPA, and I said, help, I can't make sense of this. I think I had a stack of almost, I think it was 54, 55 bills. And I said, I can't make sense of this. I don't know who's what. This is a hospital that both my husband and I have privileges at. And this makes no sense. And so we went through it, and she said, you have no choice, but you got to call because this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So short version is we owe $84,000.
Oh.
And the thing is, my husband hadn't worked because
He's
he was
sick.
So when you own your practice and you don't work, you know what happens? You don't get paid.
You don't get paid.
And I had taken off work because I needed to take care of my husband, which meant I wasn't getting paid. So we went through our savings, for 6 months doing stupid things like mortgage and food and those kind of things.
Options.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And this was 2008 and there was no credit available. And so I called the hospital and I said, look, put me on a payment plan.
Yeah.
And they said, no, but we take credit cards. And I said, I laughed because I'm like, I don't have an $84,000
You take credit cards?
So
Ridiculous.
it was probably the time in my life that I would say I was the lowest because I was just ashamed. And I had tears going down my face, and I went and saw my parents, and I said, I need help. I don't know what to do. We're going to lose our house. My husband's lying in bed, still trying to recover, and we're going to lose our house. Help. And ultimately, they did help us, but I learned a really valuable lesson, which was our billing systems aren't set up for patients. They're set up to generate money.
Right.
And the good news about Mike and I was, even as we went through that, it would be really easy to blame the care providers.
Yeah.
But because we were doctors, the one saving grace in all this is we didn't blame the people who are delivering excellent care, the team, but
Thankfully, because usually that's not the case.
Agreed.
We get blamed, yeah.
but that was the one benefit of being a physician. But the
Right.
rest of it,
Didn't
it was
help at
a
all.
devastating event that still shapes how I think about things.
Right.
It's actually one of the reasons we wrote the book.
And the thing is that's actually going to affect your level of trust with the doctor if you aren't a doctor and you don't know that this doctor didn't try to jack you, or this
Absolutely.
hospital didn't try to jack you. It's just the way the billing process works is try to extract every penny, make it as opaque as possible, make the charge master as untransparent as possible, and that's just that's the current business of medicine that's
That's
evolved.
the business model that we're currently
That's right.
involved in.
That's right. And quick question, Tom, is this zipper getting picked up too much?
A little bit.
A little
Okay.
bit. You know what I'll do? Or you can put your hand on that. There you go. So that way the zipper doesn't. Because I wore leather jackets quite a bit on the show, and Tom was like, "You can't wear your leather jacket because your zipper makes noise." And then I was like, "All right, Tom, then you can't wear your leather jacket either." He's like, "I can't afford a leather jacket, see?" And I said, "That's because you're a Bitcoin millionaire, which is vapor money."
Although doing really well.
That's right.
It's doing really well right now, Tom.
Front page of the Wall Street Journal, people.
Oh my
Front
gosh.
page.
Oh,
And they said it's a dangerous bubble, but you know what I say? Mo Bitcoin, mo problems. You know what I'm saying?
You should have just said you're a dangerous bubble. That's our usual response to any insult.
No, you know what? I got a $1,300 bill one time from a doctor, and my first thought was, that guy was a total douchebag who did nothing for me.
Yeah, right. You blame the doc.
Yeah, and then I promptly ripped it up and never paid it.
Yep.
He
Yep.
didn't take Bitcoin.
He didn't take Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And Tom only pays in Bitcoin. He plays arcade games, and if they don't take Bitcoin he doesn't play.
Well, I didn't realize your production company was in the gray.
Oh yes, we're in the dark web actually. I actually just did a talk for a cybersecurity conference at NHISAC that keeps us safe from internet predators.
Yeah.
And I learned so many things.
Are you scared?
I was terrified.
Yeah.
Phishing is a huge way that these guys, so they can make emails look so legit coming from people like Aetna that you'll respond with whatever information they want. And this is how they get then access to privileged users and then can basically hijack your entire system. But that's another conversation.
Sure.
We're so electronically based right now that we're vulnerable in these ways. But the truth is any of this stuff actually helping frontline care? Because when you cut to the chase in the book, you point out actually, so you did a case study of Iora Health, our partners at Turntable, same model. This idea that, wow, wait a minute, if you just do the right thing for the patient, and that includes looking at the social determinants of health and trying to intervene.
Absolutely.
I read that story, and I've been working with Rashika, the CEO, for years, and I learned something reading that about how they work. And tell me the story of that.
Yeah, so there was a lady who had moved from Northern California to Seattle to live with her daughter. Her husband had died, and her husband was her sole source of transportation. And that's actually not uncommon in the generation that's 65 and above. The husband becomes a designated driver, and a lot of women lose their skills.
Yeah.
So she moves up there. Well, the daughter works full time, so the woman becomes basically housebound. And what we know about people that are older than 65 that become housebound is they start to really suffer from major depression, and it becomes a slow decay and decline into really slow-moving death sentence, if you will. So what happened was at Iora Health, they had
Too many vowels in that name, don't you agree?
It's a tongue twister.
I
for
told
me.
Rashika.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's too many vowels. Just put a consonant somewhere. Iota?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
rebrand.
Rebrand. By the way, you know what they called their EHR?
No,
The Iora Clinical Information System, or ISIS.
that's awesome.
I'm like, that's brilliant branding. It was before the bad
Yes.
guys came, but they ultimately changed it. But anyways, please continue. So,
Now I'm completely distracted.
yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay, that's
but it's
okay.
funny. Rashika's funny. Yeah.
So they had a team together, and so the health coach said, look, we have a relationship with Uber, so we can go pick her up and bring her to the clinic, but I have a better idea. If we teach her how to use the bus, she'll be able to get to her appointments. She's in Seattle, so I'm sure there's a coffee place, any place, but she could take the bus to get coffee and meet people. She goes shopping, and she can come to the clinic. So why don't we teach her to ride the bus? So that's what they did. She actually went to this lady's house with a bus pass, helped her map out the route so that she could do those things, and then said, here's my phone number, please call me if you run into problems. And the lady did call about 2 hours later to let her know that all of a sudden she had freedom, which she didn't have before. Turns out, how did that translate for that woman? Lower blood pressure, higher satisfaction, her depression melted away, socially engaged, lost weight. So everything that we're trying to accomplish as providers, they were able to accomplish with the bus pass.
So this was our turntable model because we were partnered with Iora. And it's funny because I get nostalgic and vaguely emotional when I hear these stories because these are the stories that transform patients' lives.
Yes.
These are the stories that you would never effing get paid for in our current system. Who is going to pay that health coach to teach that patient how to ride the bus? Who is going to bill are you going to bill a 9921 whatever for that? How are you going to code that? Social isolation, not otherwise specified, a bus pass deficiency? Yeah. So how was IORA? I can answer this. IORA gets paid in a flat rate to take care of the patient. That patient is now part of their family and their responsibility. It is now a relationship, not a transaction.
Yes.
Is that the answer?
I think so. I think there's room for a lot of different models in healthcare.
I think that's true.
So I think the model that IORA Health has, which I think is excellent, and we're big fans of IORA Health. That's why I wrote about them. I think there's lots of different models, and I think these models. One of the reasons I wrote the book Back to Balance is I don't think we're going to solve healthcare with a silver bullet from the top down. It is absolutely going to occur, our solutions, from the ground up. So I think we have to try lots of different models to find the ones that work for us in our region. I used to say, I practiced for a long time. I used to say I have the Lake Wobegon practice. All of my patients are smart, they're all attractive, they all do exceptionally well. But most doctors will say, I have the sickest patients on the planet. Yeah. So the reality is every patient is a unique individual. And because of that, you look at geographic norms. What works in Las Vegas may not work in Denver, may not work in Seattle, may work exceptionally well in New York City. So you have to play around with different models that serve the population that you're working with.
I take a tip from Tip O'Neill, who said all politics is local, all healthcare is local.
Absolutely.
And that's why the edicts from the top down harm us in many, many ways. And again, you're the head of a very large group that represents a lot of people who suffer and benefit under some of the regulation, mostly suffer.
I would say this, the challenge with regulation is we never take any away.
It's always layered on.
We always layer on layer on layer to the point where it's got to collapse. It's like an avalanche.
Yeah.
You reach a critical mass and then everything starts to come in.
Are we there?
I would say we're pretty close to there.
I mean, I think most of this book builds the case that we are getting there rapidly.
I think the sign that we're either there or approaching there is the dissatisfaction that we're seeing in our providers.
Yeah.
And it used to be we talked a lot about physician dissatisfaction, but we're actually now starting to see dissatisfaction in the ancillary providers, such as in physical therapists and those, also in nurses, also et cetera.
I will tell you right now, if you look at any of these comments, they will tell you exactly that. We need a patient-centered health system, Sarah Elliott, but let's modify that and say, if you take care of the caregivers and give them the capability to care for patients, the autonomy, the resources, and get rid of the unnecessary clicks. So there's a 2-to-1 ratio minimum of computer time to face time with patients now, right? Is it worse than that?
So for every hour a physician sees patients, they're spending at least 2 hours documenting it, and then another hour when the day is done on the back end.
Yep.
So it's more than
more than 2-to-1. And nurses weigh in. Are you spending more time clicking than at the bedside? I'm going to guarantee you we're going to get a lot of people who say, I spend a shice ton of time clicking.
Absolutely.
Because, the bed rails are up, click, I got to document that. And this, and this, and this.
Oh,
and
the
this.
bed alarm went off.
The bed alarm went off, and then doctor notified at this, and this, and this, and this. And the important stuff that actually affects outcomes doesn't matter because the measurement industrial complex demands to be fed.
Absolutely.
With meaningless data.
Well, it demands to be fed, but for what reason?
Yeah, to what end?
To what end? And who's it serving?
Right.
And what impact does it make?
Right. And I think that's what I took away most from this book is we're asking the wrong questions.
Yes.
We're absolutely out of balance. When I read a chapter and I'm going, yeah, that's it, and you know that it's resonating with docs, I think it resonates with patients because you in the book are both patient, family member, and doctor.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah, the Back to Balance is not just about the art, science, and business. It also speaks to the physician-patient relationship. And one of the things I argue in the book is that the physician relationship has moved from a very paternalistic, I bestow my wisdom upon you, you should be grateful, to really more of a partnership. And where we see effective care relationships is when we do see patients engage in a meaningful partnership-like relationship with their physician. And physicians who are acting as the curators of a patient's health. And you asked the question, what does the patient want?
Right.
you can only get to the answer of that if you're actually asking.
Asking the question.
Yes.
Asking the question, talking to the patients, laying hands, getting to know them.
Yeah.
And in our current system, that's not a remunerative process. You don't necessarily get paid for that.
Right.
But with new payment models and new ways of doing it, and that doesn't necessarily mean macro MIPS and all of that, because it seems to me that's more the measurement industrial complex, a process without concern for an actual outcome.
Well, and I often talk about what we have as a healthcare finance policy and not a healthcare policy.
Yeah.
And one of the, although I really strongly advocate for us, meaning the first front line, making change, I would ask our policymakers, you need to make a decision. Is this a finance issue or is this a healthcare issue? Because what we're seeing is a finance issue. If it's a finance issue, fine, let's call it a finance issue and operate under those. But you can't basically do both simultaneously.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that I think is a great takeaway from this is, because this I found very interesting. When I spoke at your conference, it was like a couple thousand people.
There was about 3,000 people.
3,000 people in this big venue.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were practice managers, administrators, and there were some doctors.
Yes.
They speak different languages.
Yeah.
So the language of business and the language of clinical medicine, they, without work, don't connect.
They're like this.
And that may be one of the fundamental problems why we don't trust administrators, and administrators can't understand why we're not listening.
Absolutely.
Well, what's your take on that?
Well, what I describe in the book is it's a lot like, so I grew up in Littleton, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver.
Basically South Park.
Well, actually about 10 miles from South Park.
Got it.
Okay. And so,
did you kill Kenny?
Many times.
I knew it. I knew you were one of the etiologies of Kenny's demise. Anyways, please continue.
Yeah, there's a code for that. So,
yeah, right. That's a great. There's a top 10 list, and it's like, guys, if you check out one page in this book, I don't remember what page it was.
It's in chapter 5.
It's in chapter 5. So, anyways, it's a list of different ways to die, and the question that you ask is, which is an ICD-10 code, and which is a way Kenny actually died
on South Park.
And it's hard to tell them apart because ICD-10 is so insane. Anyways, so we were talking about the business speak and the clinical speak.
So I write about, even though I grew up in Littleton, I took 5 years of Spanish in Littleton, and I spoke with a native Littleton, Colorado accent.
¿Por qué?
Yeah,
no.
pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. ¿Dónde está? You know? So I thought I could speak Spanish, right? And then I did my residency in a population that was a native Spanish-speaking population. And I thought I could speak Spanish, but I couldn't. So I was trying to speak to them, but they couldn't understand what I was saying. And I couldn't understand what they were saying. And I tried to fake my way through, but both of us ended up incredibly frustrated because we really couldn't understand. And by the way, it was really important because I was taking care of these patients. We didn't really have a mechanism of communication. I think in a lot of ways there's a parallel of that between clinical medicine and business of medicine, in the sense that what clinical medicine speaks and values is dramatically different than the business of medicine. So the business of medicine assumes that clinical medicine understands its language, but it doesn't, and vice versa.
Right.
So then you have a business person that comes in and says, I'm going to drive your practice to productivity, high performance, everything else.
Lean.
Yeah,
right.
I'm going to Six Sigma.
Yep,
you
black
to
belt
death.
you. Yep.
Yes. I'm a green belt from
Yes.
yellow belt, actually, technically.
I'm a brown belt. Is that a thing?
And I think in jiu-jitsu.
Okay. It feels racially right for me.
So, but the challenge is they don't they don't speak the same language. They don't hear each other, and because of that, it just leads to conflict after conflict.
Constantly.
Yes.
Constantly. You know, and I think the other thing you do a great job in the book is kind of demonstrating the value of each branch. So the art of medicine, we spend quite a bit of time saying, this is why it matters.
Yeah.
Listening, touch, these things change cortisol levels, they change hormones, they change healing. It's been documented. Abraham Varghese and these guys at Stanford, others have talked about
And
this.
there's a strong business case for it as well.
So then you get to the business case.
Yeah.
How do you deliver healthcare to the most people, the most efficiently, in a way that's profitable so that by doing good in the world you do well? That's the business case.
Yes.
Business matters.
Yes.
It took me years to figure this out by starting a clinic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the business matters.
I know,
And
that's
then
like it's like drinking from a fire hose.
It's like drinking from a fire hose. You're learning all these terms. People are like, we're going to do a technical deep dive, get some field level traction. Have you talked to your marketing people about penetration? I'm like, there's only one type of penetration I care about, and that's not what you're thinking.
Soft eyes.
Soft eyes.
Yeah.
You just gave me soft eyes.
Yeah.
Tom gave me stink eyes. So, but this idea that then knowing that, you then straddle both sides. So
Yeah.
you were a clinician and an administrator
Yeah.
and a consultant. How do you bring that reconciliation to people? Because I found it very hard.
Well, and I had the same experience. So I started trained pure. I was so gung-ho, came out of residency. I opened my practice right out of residency.
Wow.
And just got knocked around pretty hard. And it took about 5 to 6 years to really figure out how to make it work.
Right.
The first recognition that I had, which is actually what led me to go to business school, was after running the practice for 5 years, it was I wanted to make an impact in medicine, but the best way I could do that was using the lever arm of business.
Yeah.
Because I'd figured out, having run a practice, that everything I do clinically actually has an economic impact. And I think that's probably a different sharing of thought than a lot of my colleagues that are providers. So when I went to business school, what I recognized is I was listening to the business professors, and you learn that content knowledge. But then I was tasked as a physician leader to get physicians to, do something, figure out X, Y, or Z. And I couldn't use the same language. So I could communicate with the administrators and speak
Right.
their language, and then I could communicate as a doc. But what motivated the physicians was very different than what motivated the administration. And so I would have to say that's something that I've seen over and over again as a consultant and in my current capacity.
And I've had the same experience. And it's interesting because what clinicians care about is time.
Yes.
They care about time.
Time, so statistically,
Yeah.
time, autonomy,
Autonomy.
independence,
Yep.
money is a distant fourth.
It's distant.
Really distant.
Like if you're really underpaid, you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, and this is the thing, so that's why pay for performance is an effing scam.
Absolutely.
Intrinsically motivated clinicians, nurses, doctors, etc., they are less concerned. In fact, you pay them, they do worse. That's what the data shows, right?
That is consistently what the data shows. And it's really interesting. I gave a talk earlier this week where I was talking to business people. And for business people, this is the value system. If I pay you more, you'll perform better.
Right.
But interesting from a sociological standpoint, it is not just in healthcare, in
Anything.
any industry. If you pay people more for performance, they perform
They do
worse.
worse.
Yes.
It's counterintuitive, but it's very human. Humans need some degree to be intrinsically motivated.
Yes.
And doctors are very good at that. Nurses, clinicians are very good at that. But then it hurts when you start telling people, well, we'll pay you more to hit these quality metrics or to do this or to do that. They actually counterperform.
So you'll see a minute improvement,
Yeah.
and then you'll see them drop below their baseline.
Right, right. Which again, why the hell are we doing MACRA and MIPS and all this stuff then?
No comment. Wait,
No
soft
comment.
eyes.
Soft eyes. You can give me soft eyes. I can say it's crazy, it's insane, but it's not. It's how government works. It's how we work. We
Yeah.
try to do the best thing using the data that we have. Unfortunately, the data that we have says that we ought to be doing the opposite of what we're doing. But so here's a question: if we're intrinsically motivated, if time is an important thing, if autonomy is an important thing, how about this? Tell doctors and nurses and systems, do the right thing for the patient. Take the time it takes to do that. We'll give you money to take care of this group of patients, and if you do well, we can maybe give you more next year. The idea then being just focus on doing the right thing. We'll give you technology that can help you do your job, but then gets out of the way. We're going to remove the clicks and the administrative overhead and let you do your thing and give you a team to support you for that stuff. And we're going to make it such that the relationship is the fundamental thing. Do you think that would help, or is that crazy?
Well, I don't think it's crazy at all, but I think from a business standpoint, you have to make a concrete business case that that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think we are doing that. So I know insurers, believe it or not, insurers are getting into this business because they understand that honestly our government doesn't have the systems and the sophistication and the IT support to lead the way. So, but they do. So we do see places like Aetna and United Healthcare starting to partner with physicians to do exactly those things. And so we are seeing demonstration projects that are going in that direction.
Can I tell the ZPAC something? ZPAC, when Dr. Fischer-Wright says Aetna is, insurance companies are working to try to actually improve care and improve outcomes, you would immediately want to discredit her and think she's insane. However, I am telling you that I have worked with these guys, in particular Aetna, and their leadership and what they are doing currently that isn't entirely publicly unveiled is absolutely on the right track, because like you said, and I think this is a key part, they have abilities, capacities, data, technology, security that the government does not and cannot have. And if they are motivated to partner with providers
Right.
and integrate in that way and actually improve the bottom line care of the patient,
Yes.
then we're all going to do well financially, we're going to have great outcomes, and the relationship will come back.
Well, in the book, I speak about everyone's motivation. So from a standpoint, an insurance company is a publicly traded company that its goal is to generate profit for its shareholders.
Yeah.
So you would say, oh, they're part of the man, they're part of the industrial complex.
Fight the power, son.
Exactly,
Right.
right? But the reality is providing good care is good for their business,
Yes.
because if they help support their patients and their patients are healthier, they actually do make more money. So it's in their own best interest to help serve the patient.
Yeah. Now the downside is if a member in an insurance company is only there for 2 years, why do they have incentive to invest in that member and prevent disease if it's just going to go across the street to another group?
And that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So, but what we see is if you take a look at the flow studies, there's a certain population that tends to float from insurance company to insurance company.
By the
but
way, flow studies is a very business speak.
Oh, sorry.
Can you translate that into clinician
So
speak?
if you follow people who have health insurance, the nice thing is, I wouldn't say nice, but because there's been so much insurance consolidation, there isn't a lot of traveling between multiple health insurers anymore.
Got it.
There's only a few choices.
And that's flow.
That's
yeah.
the flow.
Got it.
So, they may, basically, if you steal a patient from Aetna and put them in Blue Cross, and Blue Cross steals one from United, they're trading
it's
the
a
same
wash.
people.
It's a
yeah,
wash,
it's
yeah.
like playing poker. It's the same chips over and over.
Right. Amazing. So what's your optimism level for the future?
It's super high. And part of it is people like you doing things like this. We are at
Professional clown right here. Sorry.
That's exactly right.
It's exactly right.
I've never been more optimistic about the future of healthcare because I think we've reached a crisis point and people are in enough pain that they're willing to change.
Yeah.
And it's when we're in enough pain that we're willing to say, stop, what we're doing is cray-cray, let's talk about what we actually want and then work backwards to get there. So I think it's probably the best opportunity in healthcare is today.
Today.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think we're at a tipping point. I tell medical students, they're like, oh my God, everyone's telling me it's going to be a disaster and don't go into it. And I'm like, no, this is the time.
Yeah.
You're rolling the dice a little because here are your choices. We make an amazing 3.0 system where we get back to balance.
Exactly.
To pitch the book.
Yeah.
Or
Shameless pitching.
shameless pitching, because I love the book and I love tribal leadership and I love you and everything you're doing. The second option is the entire Western civilization crumbles into ashes, Atlantis style, because there is no middle ground. We cannot continue doing what we're doing.
Right.
We have gone to war for less than has been foisted on us by our healthcare non-system.
Yeah.
And we got to stop talking about the healthcare finance system and more about health care.
Right.
And it's going to take physician leadership, clinician leadership, people on the front
And
line.
patients too.
And patients together.
Absolutely.
Except for e-patients, they're weird. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, e-patients. Don't get mad at me, e-patient Dave. I see you. On that note, anything you want to part with?
If I could give any message to people that are watching, I think it's easy to get sucked into the misery that's healthcare. But the message that I write about in the book is empowerment. And that is every single person who's online, who'll watch this video in time, has the opportunity to exert influence in a positive way on the healthcare system. Don't wait, do it. If you're a physician in a practice, take a look at what you can do in your own practice.
And that's, I get a lot of comments, what can we do? We're so disempowered, et cetera. I mean, that's the answer.
Yeah.
And being a part of the tribe and the conversation and being part of what in tribal leadership you call a stage 4 group where you're trying to really connect and find a purpose and this sort of core values, which are let's make patient care about patients.
Yeah, so the AMA had a beautiful survey that showed that 80% of people, physicians who went into healthcare, went in to basically take care of patients and to make an impact. And
That's our intrinsic motivation.
That is
Yeah.
our intrinsic motivation, and we can still apply that today.
Yeah, yep, I agree. Halee Fischer-Wright, physician, leader, amazing author. The book, Back to Balance, is in the link in our description, and if you buy it, actually read it, because it is absolutely spot on. And what I like at the end is the optimistic points for how we move forward.
Yeah.
You're in a position to pull the levers of power to influence people. You have dinner and lunch and 3 martini breakfasts with very, very, very big movers and shakers in healthcare. And so we, the Z-Pack, implore you to represent us, and we're looking forward to working with you in the future and trying to support you in your efforts. So thank you again for being on
And
the
thank
show.
you, Z.
Well, how many stink eyes you got for us, Tom Heineber?
You know what? Y'all need to get on Z about his fence sitting on important issues. Picard is clearly better, okay?
Yeah, see,
He
2
always
out of
was.
3. You lose.
You people are sick in the head. James T. Kirk Tiberius is the shiznit. On that note, guys, how sick is Tom, by the way? Listen to his voice.
I'm so sick.
That's because I'm going to tell you why. Tom Heineber does not wash his hands. Ever.
Z told me once I got the flu shot I'd be immortal. But clearly that was wrong.
The immortal self of Henrietta Douche. Tom Heineber. Guys, thanks to Halee Fischer-Wright.
Thank you.
Rep the MGMA, check out the book, and hit share, hit like, and what we out.
1, 2, 3. Just give me patience, yeah.